G'day folks, today's video includes another hopefully interesting laptop computer, but one that's different than some of the others I've shown recently on the channel. And you might get an idea as to what this machine has for a feature once I reach over here and pull out this little lanyard. That's right, I have another tablet, which it's replacing another one, which has already been sold by the time you're seeing this video, of course. And that is this machine here that takes its place, a Fujitsu Lifebook. So this is a Fujitsu Lifebook T900 series machine from about 2010, and as you see, it definitely has a stylus with it, which is one of the reasons why I've got this little machine. And it's actually quite capable in the touchscreen department, at least as far as the stylus is concerned, so that's why I'm glad I got the stylus with it. It does have its issues though, both cosmetic and of course there's a thing with the lid catch, so that's not exactly the best. But hey, it's more capable than the Dell Latitude XT that I had prior to this, for which this machine is actually replaced by this point. So I could probably say it's worth the trade-offs in the end, especially considering that this has a much more powerful processor than that Latitude XT. We'll get into that here in a little bit. But first, let's take a look around my particular machine. Now, these Fujitsu Lifebooks are pretty interesting in that they're kind of like a mid-range business class E style laptop, if you will. They do have their cheap spots, like in this case, this machine is made out of some kind of plastic in a way, all the way around, but it does have a pretty nice hinge. It definitely has some good features, good specs, and it's also got a pretty nifty heatsink and a nice way to clean the heatsink, which I haven't really seen before on many other machines, let alone this one or other Fujitsus. So this definitely does have some niceties to it, but I digress. So let's go around the ports and show you around the machine. Now I've already shown you the stylus briefly, but it sits in this little silo in the front of the laptop. It says Lifebook on it. I'll actually put it upright so you can see that. And this is actually a Webcam digitizer, which is not something that you see too often from this era. Well, maybe, but depending on the cost and especially considering the make, this actually makes sense that this would have something like this. So it's got a couple different buttons. It's got a little eraser button up here, which is also pressure sensitive, much like the stylus tip at the front of the pen. This is also pressure sensitive. To how many levels, I have no idea, but it's also got a little plastic tip, and in the front of the machine where the screen is, there's a screen protector on it, which definitely has seen some love. You'll see what I mean here in a little bit. On the front, there's just a bunch of little ventilation holes, well, mainly over here. Over there is probably where the battery goes, so that's probably why there's no ventilation there. You do have some indicator LEDs, mainly for the charge status of the batteries, which this doesn't have more than one battery in it, so these two lights over here are completely useless for me. But these two are useful, well, I guess if you will. So starting from left to right, we have our power, which uses the old Lenovo style of power, if you know what I mean. You have your DC in, so this will light up whenever a charger is connected, regardless of battery charge statuses. That's your hard drive and optical drive status LED. It actually does both functions in case, you know, your system has an optical drive over here in place of a second battery, which mine does. And there you can see the different LEDs for the batteries. Now, battery 1 here shows if the battery is actually present. Same thing for this one over here. This one will show the charging of whatever battery the system is choosing to charge. So if it's charging battery number 1, this will be lit. If it charges battery number 2, then this will be lit. And then these two lights here are color coordinated to blue and orange, obviously reflecting low battery status. So that's pretty nice. And then there's a little wireless switch which turns off and on both the Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth. These may have had options for cellular radios. I don't remember. I believe they did. Like little 3G cellular radios were actually optional on these Lifebooks, which is pretty nice. There's a Kensington security slot there. And one thing that was a leg up over my Dell Latitude XT, which wasn't its fault necessarily, was the inclusion of this DVD drive. Now, that was something you could get with a port replicator add-on little dock thing that clipped onto the bottom of the Dell Latitude XT. And that only made sense because it was a smaller, more portable little tablet hybrid machine, whereas this is more or less a fully fledged laptop from 2010 that just so happens to have the touchscreen and hinge swivel thing attached to it. So that's no surprise that this has a DVD drive. But still, since I didn't have it on my Dell Latitude XT, this is definitely a leg up over that machine. Interestingly, there is a second lock on the back. I don't know why you'd have it there, but I guess in case you didn't want to put it on the corner, I can see that being a possibility. Right here is the optional modem. This does have it, so you can see the 56K V92 modem that this has. Otherwise, there'd be like a knockout plug here for some other feature. So it's kind of surprising that a machine this new has that, but that's not uncommon in the business space. You have a USB 2.0 port there, a little spot for some ventilation, I would assume. Behind this door is the VGA, and also there's your gigabit LAN and a second USB port and another ventilation hole right there. To wrap up our selection of ports, we have our charger inlet jack there. We have our exhaust, which has a very thick copper heatsink. Like, you can tell this thing was not fooling around, and we'll get onto that here in a little bit. You know, you can actually clean this, which is very unique for a laptop anyway. We have microphone and headphone jacks, our third USB 2-port. We have our IEEE 1394 connector here, the 4-port kind. We also have above us an express card slot inside, which has this little blinking plate which matches the rest of this design. We also have a card reader which supports SD and Memory Stick Pro, those sorts of formats. It's not all inclusive, but it does cover a good majority of the most common formats of the time. And then right underneath this is a smart card slot in case your organization used smart cards to secure your computer. Now, unfortunately, my machine has a broken lid catch, which doesn't help, but this would be what it would look like. You could actually rotate this around and the machine just auto-powered on. That's fun. Let's see if I can turn it off real quick. Well, the computer didn't understand no when I wanted to turn it off, so out comes the battery, which, by the way, is a 63 watt-hour battery, but anyways, I digress. So back to this. So this would clip down into there and hold the screen in place if you had it in tablet mode, but unfortunately mine has a broken catch, so this doesn't really work anymore. So this is completely pointless, but you can kind of see what the idea was. Now, the rest of the machine has a lot going for it. Like right up here, this has a 2 megapixel webcam, which obviously my Latitude XT didn't even have a webcam, so that's a nicey to have on top of this. And it does work, and it looks pretty good, actually, I would say. Now, as I mentioned, this does have a screen protector. The screen is not nearly this damaged, so this is all from the Stylus and wear that this machine had in a prior life. So I could easily take this film off and the display would look absolutely perfect, but I'm going to leave it on here because it does serve a purpose of protecting the screen, even if it does look hideously used. And down below on the bezel, we have a few different features, like a fingerprint reader over here off to the left. It's just a swipe sensor, so that's pretty nice. There would be a scroll pad little thing here for scrolling through web pages if you're on the touch screen. Over here we have a few different programmable buttons, some of which have, I think these are like macros you can program with the function key. That's your screen rotation lock button or something of that nature would rotate from portrait to landscape because this doesn't have an accelerometer in it. Then I'm not sure what these do. They're like page up, page down keys, maybe those arrow keys there. And then I'm really not sure what that button there is for, like maybe a Windows security button. I'm not sure, because that could be a thing that could be enforced, would be the Windows security. So that does your Control-Alt-Delete for you in a single button press. Then down here, there's like a little key lock light. I'm not sure what that does, or maybe that's a key lock sensor. Not really too sure. I think that's a light though. And then you have a stereo microphone down here as well. I haven't tried that yet, but at least it has one, so that's pretty nice. Of course, as I mentioned, with these lights, num lock, caps lock, and scroll lock is down here. And over here is an ambient light sensor. And I know this because I've covered it up and it does actually work. So this does ambient brightness depending on what it sees. So that's pretty cool. Anyways, other than that, you have our keyboard, which actually is a pretty nice keyboard. Now, at first it doesn't feel like it, but actually it has some pretty tactile rubber dome switches in it. And it actually feels pretty decent to type on. And that's one thing this laptop has going for it, is a pretty decent keyboard. It looks pretty ugly because it's yellowed a little bit, probably, because I don't think it originally came with this cream yellow color to it. But it actually feels really good. Really nice springy rubber dome switches. So that's definitely a positive of this laptop. It's definitely something that has going for it over the Latitude XT. Not that it had a bad keyboard, but, you know, this is definitely superior. Also, the touchpad is a little bit larger. It does have multi-touch support to my knowledge, unlike the Latitude XT. And nice clicky buttons. Of course, the left mouse button was used more than the right mouse button. You can tell just based on the sound, but that's whatever. And then finally, on the left-hand, right-hand sides, we have little rubber strips to keep the display from making contact with the palm rest, and as such, clicking either the touchpad buttons or the keyboard. So that's a nice thing, and also prevents, you know, obviously wear marks. In fact, the palm rest itself is actually not too bad a shape. Not too many wear marks or scratches or anything. Obviously, on the edges, there's some wear marks, but nothing unusual that you wouldn't expect on a machine that's like 10 years old now. Speaking of that 10 years old age, here is the processor sticker, which this is a first-gen i5. This does not have a like one of those ultra low voltage i5s in it, which was much to my surprise. This actually has a standard off-the-shelf mobile i5 520M processor, and not the ultra low voltage one. This is the full speed version, which is pretty nice. So it actually benchmarks better than my E6410, not by much, but a little bit better. Of course, this doesn't have any kind of discrete graphics. This just has whatever Intel integrated video it has, whatever flavor of HD graphics family this has in it. So nothing fancy, but it does get the job done, and it's certainly vastly more powerful than the Core 2 Duo that was in the Latitude XT I had before. Fortunately, I don't have to worry about censoring any Windows license keys because this one's already pretty melted as it is, so I don't have to worry about that. But this is the underside, and here's the product labeling. As you can see, Lifebook T series model T900, made in Japan, and the original specifications of this unit are right down here. So as you can see, this would have shipped with a Core i5 520M, Windows 7 Pro, a dual-layer DVD burner drive, 4 gigabytes of RAM, 160 gigabyte hard drive, has Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, and it had a 13.3-inch WXGA display, which means it has a resolution of 1280 by 800. And I/O probably meant something else, but I/O might have meant the modem or something in that knockout plug over there. There is a little docking station connector on the bottom of the laptop here, which is underneath this little protector. And then we have this neat little cover. Now at first it doesn't really look like anything of the part, but you can squeeze the two tabs, and you know, this probably works better if you had two hands. I want to see if I can do it with one. And it just pulls out this little piece of plastic, and that allows you to get into the very nice copper heatsink and clean it. Why don't laptops have this feature? It is so ingenious. And the fan is right here, and this is just basically a little guide, but look at that. You can just get right in there and clean the heatsink. Again, why don't more laptops have this feature? This is absolutely brilliant. You know, I would wish that that would be the case, but, you know, obviously thin and light these days is the priority, and I'm kind of for that. I don't, you know, MacBook, but, you know, anyways. So it is what it is. Obviously, the battery goes right here. The hard drive goes right here. The RAM access door is right here. It's missing screws because that's how I got this machine, unfortunately. So that's just that. And I think right here is where you can eject that modem out of the back of the machine. I'm not sure how you do that, but don't quote me on that. That probably is completely inaccurate. Maybe it pops off this cover or something. I don't know. I haven't taken apart this laptop before. Or no, actually, sorry, that ejects the optical drive out of the bay so you can put in the battery. My bad. I was kind of brain farting there. So once again, I have to apologize because of this hideous screen protector. It's going to cause a bunch of glare on the screen. I guess I could go close the blinds real quick while this boots up, but I'll do that after this clip is finished because who cares about the boot screen. You can see the management engine is reflected in the BIOS, which it's not really necessary, but hey, they did it anyway. And here you go, booting Windows 10. I was thinking about putting Windows 7 on this for the sake of demonstration because all the drivers for this machine are meant for Windows 7. But for the most part, they seemingly work in 10 except for these buttons on the front, which I need to figure out what those are not working for. Or the scroll sensor doesn't work. But the fingerprint sensor does seem to appear as a Windows Hello device, which is nice. But It's not anything, I'm not planning on really keeping this install of Windows on here. I have other uses for this computer, not just, you know, as Windows 10, because I have another machine that's, you know, obviously a Core i5 first gen that has Windows 10 on it already that I could use. But, you know, this machine's going to do some other things like, you know, Windows betas where the touchscreen can actually come in handy. But either way, I digress. We're here as we sit. So it's just a clean install of Windows 10, nothing incredibly fancy at all. It's just, you know, something that I could use to demonstrate the tablet. So actually, speaking of the tablet, as I mentioned, this is a Wacom, or Wacom, however you pronounce it this week, sort of stylus. So we're going to go ahead and come over here and trigger the start menu and get it open. Now this machine's display is only stylus. There's no touchscreen capability on this anywhere. It's only for the stylus, which is fine. Of course, it works just fine. I believe there's some other stuff in here too, which I haven't gotten to work, which is unfortunate because, you know, Windows 7, you know, specifically the shock sensor for the hard drive, I haven't gotten that working. I don't know why, but we can take a look at the stylus control panel here, which, as you can see, gives us a few different options. Like we can do hard press to double click, a hover click if we wanted to, a click sound, which is, I guess, partial to whoever wants it. That's what that sounds like. I'm going to turn it off because it gets kind of annoying after a bit. Then we can actually calibrate this, which I did have to do because the corners were a little bit jank. Like the top of the corner was all the way up here in the bezel. It was a bit weird. And you can see the automatic brightness is not doing me any favors today because I'm currently in the way of the sensor. So if I move out of the way, then boom. Not a big fan of the automatic brightness sensors that this thing has in it because you can so much as sit in front of the computer to actually like use it, and then the brightness just plummets. It's kind of annoying. But the problem is you can't really change the brightness based on the Windows version because it just turns the brightness down way too low. As you can see, based on the Fujitsu HUD here, it's way too low. It's not bright enough. So that's an issue with Windows 10 with this machine, which is unfortunate. But it is what it is. So let's see if we can do something with this while we have this computer up. I suppose we could go launch the whiteboard application real quick and play around with that. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a new whiteboard here, shall we? And then actually what we'll do before we get started, we'll go ahead and flip the display around here. So it goes out this way. There's two speakers underneath the display, by the way, if I didn't mention that earlier, which I don't believe I did. Move my mask and other things out of the way here. And then we can just go ahead and click this thing into place for what it's worth. And there we go. And now you can just go ahead and turn this around, and then we can, I don't know, do something with it. Not really sure what I would do with it, but no, I made a jank mistake there. Whoops. All right. Let's see if we can do like the old hello, like on the Macintoshes. A really terrible one, but you know, hey, it works. And it's actually pretty responsive. It's way more responsive than the Core 2 Duo I was using before for this pretty much same purpose with the same application and everything. Although it definitely does put the processor to work. Not at the moment, but you know, if I were to start drawing, I'll erase all this stuff here on the display. And I'm on battery power, so it is a little on the laggy side, but it's not the worst, I guess. Then I can kind of do like the Windows XP logo, like really, really terribly done. If I had more, whoops, that's not exactly what I wanted to do at all. Battery power doesn't exactly do this thing justice because I hit the select button on the pen by accident. But you can kind of get an idea. But it definitely puts the processor to work when you're doing more intensive things. And ideally, it would probably run faster if you were plugged in. But for all intents and purposes, it does work. Now, ideally, I would like to use this kind of functionality when it comes to beta versions of Windows, like Windows 8 maybe. Oh, I sent the camera to focus, my bad. But I don't know. We'll have to see what kind of betas this machine would be capable of using the touchscreen with, because you know how it is with the drivers and such. But otherwise, you know, it's fun to navigate around Windows using the stylus, because why not? Let's see, where's Paint 3D? We can open that up, I guess, and have a play around here. Yeah, only having 4 gigabytes of RAM. It's not particularly the fastest computer in the world. And as you can see, it just realized that, we're in full screen here. So you can make a new thing here, and you can just, have at it as you will. Select a different color, a little bit bigger thickness. Yeah, battery does not help with the performance. But hey, it works, I guess. I'm not saving that. So yeah, that's pretty much, for all intents and purposes, what I can show with this Lifebook T900. Since I don't have the proper operating system, software, drivers, or whatever, I could maybe install Krita on this, which is like a free Photoshop clone, if you will, or GIMP. And I could try doing stuff with it, but I'm no artist, so there's not really too much I can do in the way of demonstrating this. I guess I can actually go and demonstrate the webcam. Could technically do that. If I can get this to go in the corner. It's a little bit finicky, but that's kind of what this machine has going for it. And it's not going to look too great because I'm facing the fluorescent light in my room, so give me a minute. There we go. Then we're not going to have it access my precise location. There we go. Hideously ugly Jordan behind the webcam, but it's in 2 megapixel mode. There actually is some clarity to it. Like, you can kind of tell just based on my hair up there and the ceiling tiles. Yes, this actually has a little bit of resolution to it. And video-wise, this will do 1080p, which is pretty nice. I believe it does 1080p. I might be wrong. I might make a fool of myself if I go in here and see it only does 720. Let's see. Oh, video-wise, it only does 800 by 600 at the most. Well, that's interesting. I would have figured this would have had enough resolution to do like HD or something, but maybe it's set to 4:3 only, or maybe this webcam can only do 4:3 and that weird 11:9 aspect ratio. I don't know. Still, it's at least a better webcam, in resolution, like raw resolution, than a lot of modern machines even come with. Although, of course, that might change based on the fact that, people have probably complained enough that webcams and laptops are garbage and that we should expect better resolution, you would think. But that probably won't happen. So anyways, like I said, yep, that's about it for this Fujitsu Lifebook T900. So if I ever get some motivation to do some more Windows beta videos, which might happen here in the near future, well, you might just see this machine pop up. But we'll see what kind of operating systems this machine will be compatible with, just based on the fact that it has a first-gen Core i5. But we'll find out as the time comes along. So hopefully you liked this video, and if you did, well, then click the thumbs up button. If you didn't like it so much, well, then the other button works too, to dislike the video. If you want to see more content just like this, or perhaps more entertaining content, there'll be a button down below that says subscribe. You should probably click on it, as well as the bell, so you don't miss when I upload new videos. And with that having been said, thank you very much for coming to watch. I'll catch you all in the next one.